Matching a new color in Match Textile 2.0. From the main screen, we'll click on the Recipe button. Once in the Recipe screen, the button at the top here is the Match button. We could also use F5 on the keyboard. But we'll click on the Match button, and it opens up our matching screen. We have 4 tabs: Process Data for Matching, Die Set, Lab Graphic, and Settings. We'll start out with the process data for matching. The first thing we need to do is put in our quality style. Now, it has an X, so we cannot input the style here, but we can browse. Down at the bottom right-hand corner, the button with the 3 dots, if we click on that, we can browse for our quality style, and we will select Polyester 2025. Click OK. The next thing is substrate delivery. We may have more than one color of this substrate, but this just has one element, so PES blank dyeing is the base color of this quality style. Below here we have possible dye sets. So we have disperse, disperse all, and used dye sets. That's the position that the dye set needs to be in to do matching with that dye set. So disperse Tirasil, and that's in the used dye sets position. The next thing that we would need to do is input our standard. So if we were going to input our standard from the database, let's say we've measured this standard already before, we can click on the bottom 3 dots and browse our database for this data. So we can scroll down here and we can find one of our standards and highlight it and click OK. And now we have recipe standard canary in our matching box. So let's say we wanted to measure in a new standard. We could come up here to the left-hand corner and change it to input. And then we can type in the name of our standard. My first standard, orange. Okay? And to measure things, we can either right-click and choose Measure. That will measure multiple times, or we can just click on the Spectro button to measure one time. For this video's sake and timing's sake, we'll just click on the Spectro and take our measurement. So we've measured in our orange color. We can see as the color is displayed next to the box and also up at the top. Our next tab is Dye Set, and this is where we'll select the dyes that we will use to match this color. So we can come in and we can individually select the dyes by clicking on the checkbox to highlight them. Or we can go all or none with the 0-1 toggle button. If we don't select any dyes, it will automatically select them all. Another good feature of the Dye Set tab is we can create a group. So say, for example, I have a group that is light fast. We can click on the dyes that are light fast. Let's say the yellow 4G and the orange and the red R and the blue. Say these are our light fast dyes. To create this group, we would click on the left-hand corner here to make this green for input, and we'll put in light fast and click Save. So now if I toggle again, so we have no dye selected, and we can browse for light fast, highlight it, and click OK. It selects our dyes for us. Okay? So we've got our dye selected. So the next tab is Lab Graphic. This is an optional tab. It shows the gamut of color that you cover with the dyes you have selected. So if I click some dyes, I can move it around, and I can move this around compared to the standard. So you see where my standard is compared to the gamut of the dyes that I have selected. So this is a visual representation of the gamut of the dyes in LAB color space related to the standard. Okay, so we'll go to the Settings tab. On the Settings tab, there's a lot of things that we can set for the match that we want to do, the number of dye stuff in the recipe, the illuminates we want to use to match. Right now it's just D65 10 degrees. We may want to match with more than one illuminate. We could use F2 10 degrees, which is cool white fluorescent, or we can also try another illuminate, incandescent A, which is like our home lighting or tungsten lighting. So these are illuminants. We also have a tolerance formula here that we might use for pass and fail when we come back and do a correction. Also, metamerism. We want to optimize on metamerism for how many dyes? For 3 dyes. So that's good. So we're optimizing on DE metamerism. Our matching method, we can use normal match, lab smart match, or production smart match. We also have the ability to save these settings. So say, for example, we wanted to save these settings for new customers. So if we save that, so every time we come back and we select new customers, it will bring in these settings for us. Okay, so now that we've set all of our settings, we can go back to the Process Data for Matching tab. And on this tab, we have everything selected. Our used die set will be dispersed Tirasil, and we've already selected our dies. So if we click on the Calculate button, it will give us a match. We click on Calculate. So we see that it has given us 6 recipes and the number of dies in them. If we highlight the number on the recipe, it will highlight the dies that are in that recipe. Okay, so if we want to select a recipe, the one with the green highlighted trial number over it is the one that's selected. We can also add more than one trial if we want to. We can right click and we can go to Add Trial, and we can highlight more than one, so we can save more than one recipe at a time. Okay. Also at the top we have our DE for our first illuminant, our metamerism for our second, and our metamerism for our third illuminant, and that's how it's sorting it. Okay, sorting these recipe lists on the first illuminant, the metamerism on the second illuminant, and the third illuminant. So we can save this recipe now if we click on the Save button, or if we try to close, it'll ask us to save. So we click on Save, and it prompts us to save this recipe. Do we want to save the recipe? Yes. And at this point, it shows us the trials that we have, 1 and 2. It's got 1 highlighted. We can show, print, or dispense. If we have a dispenser, it'll send this to a dispenser. ASCII, we'll send it to a flat text file. Or email. We could email these recipes or recipe to someone else. Or we could do close. So let's take a look at these recipes. If we highlight both of these recipes, we can show them. And we have 2 pages here. So here's our first recipe. And we click on the arrow over. That'll show us the second recipe. And we can print these out from here as well. But I'm going to close here. And we'll close again. And this takes us back to our recipe main screen, and it puts our last recipe at the top. So the most recent recipe is stored at the top. So that's how you do a match in Match Textiles 2.0.